This is Andrew Hada from Nothing Ventured Media. I want to tell you about all the feature films we've made and how you can see them right now. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one's is a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. The documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, A Family of Fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Finally, The Empty Space, winner of multiple awards, including the Sacramento Horror Film Festival's Best of the Best, is a cosmic horror about Amy Andrews, who's dealing with anxiety and depression after a violent attack that killed her husband. As she tries to find herself, she starts to lose her grasp on reality. Or could it be something much more sinister? The Empty Space is full of twists and turns, with Grace DeWilder of Rue Morgue magazine calling it a powerful film full of excellent performances by practically every cast member. All of Andrew Hada's movies are available to rent or buy on streaming services such as Tubi, Amazon, and many other places. And if that's not enough for you, Hada Films is home to all of our short films. So take a look around and see what you like. Spend your day with Hada Films and Nothing Ventured Media. Now, let's start the Bomb Squad. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Bomb Squad. Check out this new streamer mic I got. I'm going full streamer, guys. I'm gonna be streaming on Twitch and Kick. I'm ready to take my red pill. Just kidding. This is for a movie.
Any of those words.
If you've been following our Instagram, you'll know what movie this is for. If you haven't, stay tuned and you'll find out eventually. Welcome to the Bomb Squad, guys. I'm filmmaker Andrew Hada, and I'm here with my co-host. I almost choked on my own saliva. Here with my co-host Josh and William Murdoch. He's going to compose some music. I did that in a sing-songy voice, so you knew that he's a composer. But yes, welcome to the Bomb Squad. Today, we're always talking about, I don't know why I'm giving such a long intro. We always talk about underappreciated and overrated movies. And today, we're covering none of the above as we talk about Nothing But Trouble, the 1991 film directed by Dan Ackroyd, written by Dan Ackroyd and Peter Ackroyd, starring two different Dan Ackroyds. He really put his name all over this.
He loved three different Dan Ackroyds.
If you like Sinners, the hit movie about twins, you're gonna love Nothing But Trouble because there's so many people playing different characters. It actually stars Chevy Chase. It also has John Candy in one of the
two roles.
In two roles as well. He plays twins. Take that, Michael B. Jordan.
Hello.
It also stars Demi Moore in one of her first roles. And then it stars Taylor Negron as, you know him from a lot of movies that you don't know his name, but he's in here. He plays a Salvadorian.
Oh, yeah.
Who doesn't?
Well, are they Brazilian?
Oh, they might be.
Yeah, they have a lot of Brazil references. In there. So
he was born in California and he's Puerto Rican. So sorry that I didn't fight through Hollywood's racism.
I know someone has to though.
His general ethnicity. But Josh, why don't you tell us?
Oh man,
why don't you tell us what this movie is about, and then I'll tell you what the trailer
easiest one.
is.
Yeah.
Okay, so Chevy Chase is a kind of rich, charismatic bastard of a man, and he meets Demi Moore at one of his parties, he's like, "Hey, you're an attractive young woman. Would you like to come away with me for the weekend?" And they and a Brazilian couple head out of New York City, but where they end up is nothing but trouble.
Also,
as they
I do want to
True.
point out he is a financial publisher, and you should know that because they mention it 1,000 times without ever
Yeah.
saying what a financial publisher does.
he keeps throwing out stock tips randomly.
Yeah.
So I assume he's just kind of a fake money job guy.
Yeah, well,
he would be like on MSNBC or like whatever.
Yeah.
Or what's the financial channel that had like Mad Money?
I think
Like
that's
CNBC.
CNBC.
Yeah, he would be on
Yeah.
that now, but I guess it was just
He would be on Jim Cramer's show.
Exactly,
defending
yeah.
terrorists
Yeah, no,
somehow.
I feel like he would have been the guy who was defending terrorists and then lost his entire business because of them.
Yeah.
right.
Um,
But no, they do end up in front of a judge for speeding in this weird county, and the judge pretty peculiar.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the movie is about.
Yeah.
This very
Peculiar.
strange judge
Yeah.
who does things.
Right. Yeah.
Incomprehensible things.
Yeah. I don't know. You don't have to keep going. Anyway, also, this movie stars the very featured debut of Tupac Shakur along with Digital Underground to perform a song in this movie. I know what you're saying. Digital Underground, Chevy Chase, Dan Ackroyd, and do roles. How can this all come together? Well, I got some good news for you guys. It doesn't.
Sorry.
So, well, Nothing But Trouble is an interesting movie in the fact that it would like play on TBS all the time. Like it was constantly on cable. I think I've seen this movie like 8 times.
Really?
Yeah. Like, well,
I
just
didn't
like
know anything about this movie until you mentioned it.
I don't
just
see
like
how.
bits and pieces, you know, like I would watch this
Oh,
part
yeah.
and I watch this part. And it was, I don't think, and as a matter of fact, growing up as a kid, watching it a whole bunch of times, I had literally never seen any part of this movie that takes place before they get to the judge. So I had no idea how that happened.
Right.
But it's an interesting movie in that even as a kid, you kind of recognize that this movie is just not working at all.
Yeah.
But it's like it's an interesting one, and we'll get into it in a second. But it's interesting to me because it's a fascinating disaster. It's not even like
it's one of those for sure. That's what I was thinking too.
It's not even like Megalopolis, where it's like, okay, I know what he was going for. I'm not even 100% sure I know what Dan Aykroyd was going for. So
yeah,
let's get into it. So
let's bomb this squad.
Yeah.
let's squad this. I will say that for the one, I'm gonna go off of the bat with my good recommendation about this movie. The best thing about this movie is that if you're ever wondering, like John Candy passed away like a long time ago. So if you're ever wondering, like, why did everyone love John Candy? Like, why was he a star? Watch this movie because everyone is kind of given the same material. And John Candy's the only one who comes up with his head above the water and doesn't like seem embarrassed by what he's doing.
Yeah. I agree.
I would say
What
that's
is a
also
shame.
kind of the problem is that the movie's not about him when it should be.
Yeah.
Or I mean, to me, it's also, and I would actually say, the most interesting thing about this movie is, I guess Dan Aykroyd, like his conceived of it based on nightmares he used to have, which if you watch it with that in mind, you're like, oh, this movie is like a nightmare.
Yeah.
It has like dream logic the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's like a slapstick comedy, and you're like, it honestly should just be a straight horror movie.
Right.
Because it's kind of horrible,
Yeah.
and it's like you should lean into how unpleasant this is, like Texas Chainsaw style.
Yeah. So Chevy Chase, he plays this financial publisher, which they say a million times, and he's like going to his own house where he's hosting a party that's already started, and he like he's talking to his doorman. His doorman's like, "Hey, thanks for those finance tips. They really helped me out." And then Chevy Chase is like, "I'm sure they did." And I'm like, "Okay, guys, what am I supposed to be getting from this scene? Is he a good finance publisher? Or is he a bad one? Because the way he reacted made it seem like he's bad and like kind of a con man, but the way the doorman reacted made it seem like he's good and friendly. Also, one thing to think about while we're talking about this movie, Chevy Chase was Dan Aykroyd's first pick. His second pick was Rick Moranis. And if you watch this movie, there's no way Rick Moranis could have played the role the way Chevy Chase plays it. So I wonder what that would have done to
If
the
it would have just been
film.
a
Yeah.
totally different tone.
Yeah.
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 So then he goes up the elevator. He meets Demi Moore, who's a lawyer who wears business
Can we say
shorts.
she is dressed, Patrick Nagel's paintings from the
Yeah.
80s? She is a real life, like,
Yeah.
like the giant white, like,
Shoulder pads.
shoulder padded jacket, the
Yeah.
perfect
Yeah.
hair,
Yeah.
it's that I enjoyed that.
And the
Yeah.
silk shorts, silk white shorts. She's wearing all
Yes.
white. It's a very this is
the
the
whole time.
80s look.
Both
Yeah.
days.
And even
Yeah.
though it's 1991, yeah. And so they go to the party
Yeah.
and she's like she's getting screwed. And guys, I want to reiterate this into the streamer mic just so you're aware. None of this matters whatsoever. Okay, so she realizes that she kind of got conned by her client, so she's gonna go meet him, but she's also having an affair with him. But he dropped her from like a big case, so she's gonna go like confront him, but also like she doesn't think she's gonna get the case back, so it's kind of pointless. But Chevy Chase is like in love with her because she looks like Demi Moore, so he's like, "Oh, I'll drive you," and then out of the blue, two Brazilian billionaires that are his clients are like, "Oh, we'll go too," and he's like,
Yeah.
"No, I mean we're just gonna go for a drive." They're like, "We love drives," and he's like, "Okay," and I'm like, "Why is there this much setup for these characters? Like, why couldn't they already be friends?" And they're like, "Oh, but we were going up to the Hamptons this weekend."
Right.
And they'll be like, "Oh, it's a soft detour." Like, why do they have to? Like, they don't really even know the Brazilians. They don't know each other. Like, there needed to be like a meet cute or something. But also, the whole time Chevy Chase is playing it very Chevy Chasey, and so he just comes off as the most unlikable person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. And I'm kind of like, am I like just not am I like looking at Chevy Chase through a modern lens where everyone's like, oh, he's like a huge pain to work with, but it's like, no, I feel like he's just kind of unpleasant. Like, it's like he was supposed to be this like effortlessly charming guy, and he totally isn't. He's like, he's like a rich jerk,
Right. He has no characterization at all. Like, he has no complexity or anything, which you don't really need, but you need a little bit of something.
Yeah, he has no save the cat moment where it's like, oh, and I think that's what that first scene with the doorman was supposed to be like. Yeah, he's rich and he's kind of a snob, but he'll help out his friends or people that work with him.
Yeah.
But he plays it so like standoffish, and I'm like, you don't get that from there. It kind of feels like, did you guys see that Borderlands movie? Not that Borderlands movie, the one by Eli Roth.
No, I didn't.
So
I assume it's bad.
watching that movie, because it's kind of like supposed to be a Guardians of the Galaxy style space romp, but you realize that like the main problem with that movie is that Eli Roth is just not funny, and so the characters that are supposed to be funny are just not funny, and so you realize like, oh, this is bad. And I think the same thing's kind of happening here, where Chevy Chase is just kind of so unpleasant as a normal person. That if he's not given anything to latch on to or any like character to become, he just comes off as Chevy Chase, which is not very likable.
We should also we should emphasize too, these Brazilian like billionaires are like doing super comedy Brazilian, like think Hank Azaria in the Birdcage, where they're just dialed up to like 11. Every sentence is like over the top, like these guys are crazy. And you're just like,
I mean, it's very like Ackroyd SNL, Ghostbusters, all that kind of humor like rolled into this
just
nonsense.
Very big.
Because Taylor Negron is Puerto Rican, and then his sister is played by Bertella Damas, who's Cuban. So you're saying to yourself, like, oh, you have a Cuban and a Puerto Rican. Are they going to be respectful of Brazilian culture? And the answer is no. The answer is that they will dress like, if they could have put them in the fruit basket,
she almost has one on. Like,
they are sobbing into every scene.
But the other thing is that they're not even used, like their super thick like accents are not even really used for like even cheap jokes. It's just like how they're portraying themselves.
Yeah.
There's no real jokes about the fact that you're in a car with a bunch of strangers and they don't really know anyone. And they're also rich. Like, they're not even really that spoiled. They're just like there. Like everyone in
And
this movie,
right,
Yeah.
and there's no conflict there at all. Like whenever like because like what happens is like Chevy Chase is like they're Brazilian millionaires. They're gonna fall asleep. They're not even gonna come with us on this ride. And then like when they're all in the car together, it's like Demi Moore is like they're not gonna come with us, right? Like they're not gonna be on this trip. And Chevy Chase is like, I guess they're gonna come. And then like they don't fight about it. Like there's no, it's just happening. It's just going on, and it's just what.
We should. There's also there's not. They don't really stay in the movie either. They're just like they're not even.
Well, we'll talk about that when we get there.
Yeah.
But so then they're on the trip, and they like, let's take a detour through this random place. And Demi Moore's like, oh well, this will be faster. We'll go through what's the name of the town? It's like Veruca. Valenvania.
Something like, but it's like it's old Coke Road is the road they take because they do it a wide on that sign like multiple times.
Yeah, and then they even mention it multiple times, and I don't understand why. But yeah, it's called Valvania, and it was originally supposed to be the title of the movie, which I think would have worked better in explaining what this kind of movie was.
Yeah, but I think makes no sense as a title. It's
Nothing But Trouble, I like it more because it does not prepare you for what this movie's going to be about. It sounds like a romantic comedy.
I don't know if I like it more. Definitely does not prepare you.
Yeah, but it's like
it sounds like it's supposed to be about like a dog who like ruins Thanksgiving dinner or something.
I know.
Like it sounds like it's like a zany family comedy.
To me, Nothing But Trouble is like a very bad thing style. Like, oh, a group of guys get in over their heads comedy, like they kill the hooker, something like that.
Hey, not accidentally rob a bank.
Not this like madness inducing, next hour.
Well, and speaking of like the no conflict thing, so then they're just driving through. They go through the city, and it's a very fun part where they drive through the city and they're just looking at the extras. And Chevy Chase is just being as mean as humanly possible to every single person he sees. And it's like, hey guys, no, like you are not endearing me to this character. I kind of want him to be murdered.
Yeah. Like, have you ever been like, hey, we're driving somewhere. Let's go on a fun detour through like the poorer part of town where they only have a 7-Eleven. It's like, how is that pleasant for you?
I know.
Like, oh, I'm just sad now.
If anything, usually I don't go to the poor part of town until it's time for me to go to my Airbnb. But yeah, so then they like get out, and then they run a stop sign, and they start getting followed by the police, and then the two billionaires are like, "Oh, just race him. You can go way faster than him." And then so Chevy Chase just agrees to do it,
which is everyone knows it's a felony. Like what? Like,
you're supposed to be smart.
That didn't make any. That was.
They should have been driving.
You can't even have to say that.
It should like they're driving, or they have something in the car that like it would be bad.
And that's what I thought it was gonna be like. And I will say that this movie was rated R, and they cut out a lot of it once it got bad tests. So it does feel like it. Like if like this, I thought for sure that it was gonna come back that maybe they were like dealing drugs or they had guns in the car or like something that gave them a reason to want this. But they I don't think they ever well, they're not in it enough to.
It's just them saying like, "Oh, it'd be fun to race the cop."
Yeah,
like it's just, and he's
it
like,
seems made
cool.
up. It's like a made up. It's like a made up plot device to do something. Yeah. It's like circumstantial.
But it turns out the cop car has nitrous, so it can keep up with his.
So then the cop car, like, it explodes like the Batmobile. Like it has two little pipes that just shoot fire, and you're like. That's when you should start to get worried about what type of movie this is.
Yeah.
And then John Candy, he plays the main police guy, and he's also the nephew of the judge that we'll meet in a second. But he also has a button that he presses, and then like walls come out of a bush again, like Batman, to stop Chevy Chase. So then Chevy Chase gets pulled over, and John Candy, his name's Dennis. Dennis is like, hey, so here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna get a ticket for running the red light, but I'm gonna forget about the speeding and forget about everything else, like the reckless endangerment and all that, which doesn't make any sense when you find out more about his character, but let's get there.
Yeah.
And then Chevy Chase, again for no reason, is like, oh, what if I pay you off? It's like, dude, is anything he does in this movie not the worst, like morally corrupt decision?
Right.
So then John Candy's like, no, I have to take you in, and I'm gonna forget about the bride too. And then like we learn that John Candy is like the only reasonable person in this movie who like is the only one who actually cares about justice. But it's also but this didn't make any sense because then why was he trying to get him off? I don't know.
And it also doesn't
Yeah.
really like the history of the town. It like also like yeah, it's like it doesn't mesh.
Yeah.
But when he brings them to the judge, I imagine if you went into this movie blind, the second you see the judge is when you're like, oh no, is this what the movie
Well,
is?
yeah. Well, now
Yeah.
but before we even
Like-
get there, they drive to this compound, and the judge's house. It's like this beautiful kind of Victorian house, and it's surrounded by like a dome. There's like old cars there. There's like like they really focus on a lot of toasters for some weird reason that doesn't ever come back.
Yeah, there's just trash. I mean, but I mean, I will say, like, this is like what's crazy about this movie is that like the sets, like, if this movie would have been sick,
Yeah.
like, there was a lot of passion put into this movie. Like, there
Yes.
was like a very distinct vision, and you could tell that like Ackroyd or whoever made, I don't know, how everything looked. I mean, you know, everybody that was involved, like they were going for something pretty big and pretty wild, and they like almost got there. But
Yeah.
we'll talk about why it doesn't really work. But like that's why it's like not a complete failure because like you see this compound and you're just like, this is interesting,
Yeah.
this is cool, there's something going on here. But then
Right, it's like nightmarish grotesque. It's
Yeah.
like I
Right.
said, if like lean into the horror and like you have something.
The house. The production design of this house is great.
yeah,
And the makeup is great that we'll get to in a second. But
yeah,
so then they like come in and they're in front of the judge, and then like from the ceiling a door open, and the judge comes in a seat because he comes in from the roof, and he sits down, and he's 109-year-old Dan Ackroyd who's playing this like
Yeah.
decrepit judge who looks
and they
all-
block his face at first too. Like
Yeah.
they're it's like about to be this crazy cameo the whole time, and you're just like, who is it? Who's it gonna be?
Yeah.
And then like they finally show him, and it's like, okay,
And not only- so it starts off and he's like, what do you want? We gotta do this. And then he like pops up, and this scene is like, this is the scene where you realize that something wrong has happened, because he pops up and you
Yeah.
see the judge for the first time. He looks all scary, and then he goes, oh, hula hula hula, a hula hula,
Yeah.
and he's like dancing, and I'm like, I do not understand anymore what movie I'm watching, guys.
Yeah, what like
Right.
what's the tone in
Right.
my skin? We should say like he looks like 100-year-old ghoul. I think he has like a literal dick nose.
Yes, which is
Yeah.
even weirder, and we'll get to the dick nose in a second. But yeah,
lots of noses in this movie.
his nose looks like a penis, and
Literally, it has the
Yeah, it even has
It's a
a
rated
head.
R nose. Yeah.
which is later you're gonna be like, we're gonna talk about something. You're gonna be like, okay, this makes less sense than I thought originally, but we'll get there. So then he's like, okay, you guys, because Chevy. So then he's like telling him a story, and Demi Moore is like, okay, just get through the story, and then we can leave. But then Chevy Chase is like, I don't want to hear a stupid story. I'm Chevy Chase.
Right.
And I feel like he was talking directly to Dan Aykroyd during that part.
I mean,
Go ahead. The judge. So the judge
no,
is
I
like,
disagree. Yeah.
I've moved your trial to tomorrow at 4 p.m. You guys have to stay here till then. And he presses a button that opens a trap door that drops them down a slide into a bunch of
Rubber
squishy
ducks.
toys, like squishy
Yeah.
ducks, and then they're like, so in that scene they're like moving, and you can hear all the squishy toys. And I think this is my main problem with this film. Like the judge and this guy kind of show it. It's that if you watch Ghostbusters, which Dan Aykroyd had a little bit of a hand in, the jokes come from the Ghostbusters reactions. Like, oh, I got slimed, or we just need to get that guy laid and we'll be good. Like, it's
Yeah.
their reactions to the stuff, but the ghosts themselves are scary. Like, they look scary. Like that first
Right.
ghost, the librarian ghost,
Right.
was scary up to me up
Yeah,
until I was
yeah.
like a teen, you know?
Totally.
The problem with this movie is the stuff that's supposed to be scary and the jokes are the exact same. Like, you're supposed to laugh at the scary judge, but he's also supposed to be the main villain. So it's very
Yeah.
hard to like, because it's like you've just seen this terrifying judge. He sentenced you to God knows when. Who knows if you're ever going to be out? And so that's supposed to be like our first reaction to them is this scene, but it's stopped by a bunch of squishy toys every time they move.
Right. You're not sure if you're supposed to be scared or laughing.
Exactly.
Like
You know
there's no
what?
drama. There's
Okay.
no like any sort of tension at all being built.
I agree, but you know what could have worked, and we should almost like kind of, because this actually immediately after this, they're in like the squishy toys or whatever. It cuts to this group of ne'er do wells who are also like going through the town.
Yeah.
And it's
They're
like,
also on their way to a picnic. Yeah.
yeah, and they're
Just kidding.
drinking, they're doing drugs, they're out of control.
Yeah.
And the John Candy pulls them over, and they have like drugs, guns, everything. And the guy even pulls a gun, and then John Candy's like, "Not so fast," and pulls out an Uzi,
Yeah.
which again,
Yeah.
what is this
that was kind of
movie?
funny. I kind
John
of like
Candy
that.
always has an Uzi in this
This is
movie.
probably
I
my
don't
favorite
think Dan
scene in the whole
Aykroyd like
movie.
knows what he has, like what
Yeah.
cops use.
But okay, so they get put in front of the judge, and they're like, "We're evil, Judge. We're bad. We don't care about courts." And they get sentenced to a ride on Mr. Bone Stripper, and it's a literal like carnival ride that ends with their bones being stripped from their body, and
Cleanly,
killing
very
them.
cleanly, by the way.
Yeah,
This should have been the first scene in the movie,
right.
so you see
Oh,
what the
honestly,
judge
Yeah,
does, and you like, maybe it's like they hide his face the whole time or something, right?
yeah.
So you don't see the judge's face. You see that he's a crazy murderer. So that way, when he drops them into ducks, you're like, oh,
He's gonna
like,
kill them. Yeah,
That's a good point.
he's going to
That's a
kill
very
them,
good
but maybe
option.
there's different levels of punishment. Who knows?
yeah.
You know?
Right.
Or well, we know
right.
at least he's gonna kill him eventually. Well, and see, there's two big problems with that scene. The first one is that they go out of their way to make it. Also, it's Daniel Baldwin. They go out of
is
their
it?
way
So good.
to make sure you know that this other group is evil. Like they're selling drugs, they pull a gun on John Candy, like they clearly are reckless, you know. And so when they get killed, you're supposed to be terrified because like, oh, they're gonna kill Chevy Chase and all them, but it's like, but are they killing them because are they gonna kill this group because they're evil, or did they just kill this group because they're drug dealers?
fun.
You know, like
Yeah.
so it makes it hard to understand what Dan Aykroyd is going for there. Like, does the judge punish people to an extreme that he thinks are worth it, or is he just going to punish everyone the same?
Right. Like,
And
what are his morals? What is his motivation?
Exactly.
What does he actually think that he needs to be doing?
Yeah, they needed like one innocent person to get. And then the other problem. Okay, so this is a line with the dial. I wrote this down because it's so bad. So John Candy, when he's playing Dennis, he's supposed to be like the voice of reason. When they were talking about when they sent Chevy Chase and all them to the squishy room, he's like, we didn't need to do that. They're not really guilty. We can just let them go. And the judge is like, listen to me. And in this time, when he kills Billy Baldwin or Daniel Baldwin, he knows what's going to happen. So he tells the other cop, who's his cousin, he's like, I'm going to go get a smoke. I'm going to go get a smoke. You can handle this. Or take care of this. I'm going to go get a smoke. And then his cousin says, you're going for a smoke? No way. I want to see this. I'm staying. And it's like, well, John Candy didn't tell you to go. He said for you to stay.
Right.
He was going to go. And so but so many lines of dialogue are like, even like with Chevy Chase, when they fall down the first time, he literally like, she's like, we were about to get out. And Chevy Chase is like, I wasn't about to listen to an old story just to get out of here. And it's like, why not? Like, do you know how judges in America work? What's happening? But it's like so many scenes that are like that, where it's like, why did they even take the minute to pause John Candy being like, oh, I'm going to get out of here, and then have her say like, no, we need to. I mean, I understand the point is to show that the cousin is a lot more in line with the judge than John Candy is, but there
way cooler ways to show that.
Yeah,
though.
and also we already kind of knew that because she's been giddy the whole time,
like gleeful.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like hearing that they chopped it from being rated R down to PG or PG-13 makes a lot of sense for like a lot of the mishaps here.
Even rated R, how much could any of this work?
But see,
you know what I mean?
I wouldn't say it would make it a masterpiece, but
Yeah.
it might make it more comprehensible.
Scary.
And if there was like gore, that might make it more fun.
And I think that brings up another point, because when they're like, so they put him on that bone coaster that's like a roller coaster, and they're like, ah, no. But the song that's playing is like all around the world, and it's like, why are you playing like a happy song? Like it's like walking on sunshine, and they're like, no, and then they like get killed, and they show their bones being thrown, but it's like cartoonish bones because they're like
Right,
completely
right.
clean, and they're on
Yeah.
they fall on a pile of other bones and they hit a target,
Mhm.
and again, it's like if it had been more gory, like William was saying, it could have been scary.
Yeah,
But the way it is, it just kind of feels like a cartoon, which makes you not really that worried about anything, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
then it
that
makes all the
just
gross
kind of
visuals just kind
stays
of
that
stupid.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. Like the set design is so good, but like if I don't believe that you're actually cutting people open and leaving their bones in the target, then it doesn't really work, you know? Like
Yeah.
it makes
Like if they were
every
showing like if they had like a happy song playing and they were like cutting to like this like distorted like close up of like the Baldwin brother like screaming and like I don't know, like making him like look really terrified, then that also could have worked too.
yeah.
But it's just kind of bland coverage and just wacky sets and
Or
yeah,
they
it's too much happy.
or the judge should have been like, "Oh, guys, you're free to go. I'm gonna get you out of here on the express train." And then they're like, "Hell yeah, judge, thank you." And then you realize
Totally.
that they're gonna get killed, but the judge sends them to death like immediately, so they know what's gonna happen. But they're still acting like they're laughing at him, and they're acting like they're
Yeah.
not gonna get
Yeah,
murdered.
like nobody cares about anything happening in this movie that
Yeah,
Right,
much,
right,
yeah,
and it's so
absolutely. Yeah.
it's weird because again, it's like this kind of like the house and everything. It is very Texas Chainsaw, or maybe at least the Texas
For
Chainsaw
sure.
sequels.
Yeah.
yeah,
But I feel like those movies have more like laughs than this
yeah,
movie. You know what I
Yeah.
like because the weird stuff is funnier when it's surrounded by horror versus like everyone just kind of Looney Tune
well,
shrugging their way through a
Right,
scene
because
to
it's like a
get out.
manic laughter when it's like scary. You're kind of
yeah.
like uncomfortable, like, oh, what
Yeah,
the hell? But in this one, yeah, it's like, what are these jokes
yeah,
or no?
Because I think like in Texas, it's like it's that thing where like yeah, the fact that the grandpa is like hitting the girl and he can't even lift his arm is funny, but it you're not laughing during that scene because
yeah. It's
it's
horrible.
so
Yeah,
Right.
grotesque what they're planning to do to her and how they're like playing with their food, quote unquote, that you're like shocked at it. Where this one like, and
hmm
this is perfect because leads us to the next part. So right after they kill the drug dealers, which I'm not even sure if Chevy Chase's team sees. I think they kind of imply it, but they
I think
don't.
they like they hear
They're
it.
Yeah,
Maybe they're
they
like,
they
huh?
definitely hear it, but I don't know if they
Which
see it.
again,
Yeah.
just have it happen before, so this doesn't matter. You
So,
know.
but
yeah.
then the judge is like, or the niece is like, okay, guys, come upstairs for dinner. We're gonna eat. And this again, it's so easy to compare this to the Texas Chainsaw scene because it's almost the same. But they go
hmm
through this grotesque dinner. But again, like, so the judge is out there and like they're trying to get out, but he's being mean to him. And then they're giving him like, well, first of all, it's so funny because they're supposed to do that scene where they give him gross food, and they're eventually gonna give him some gross hot dogs. But the first thing they give him, like, John Kenny goes to Demi Moore and she's like, "Ants on a log, ma'am." And she takes
Oh,
one, and
yeah.
ants on a log is just celery with peanut butter and chocolate chips
Yeah.
on it.
Like
But
for
Right,
she's
it's
kids.
a healthy
she's
snack.
like,
Yeah. I've never seen this in my life.
Yeah, see, it's like, and
It's
I
like,
was
you're
like,
the
oh, is it
nice one.
Is it literal ants on a log? No,
it's
it's just
not.
she's
She's
weird.
just a snob. Yeah, and it's like,
Right.
guys, we have to care about these characters for us to be worried about them, right?
Yeah. And
But
that's
it's
like
also
not even a
like
crazy snack. Like
Yeah,
I
this,
feel like there's like
that's a
some like
school snack.
pretentious restaurant would like do that today.
and I should say too, every scene with the judge is agonizing, but this scene of like 10 minutes of him just being like, "Look at these hot dogs, aren't they great?" Well, while people look grossed out,
Yeah.
is like, oh
Well, and
man,
see,
you're in
Yeah.
the trenches
again, like,
Right.
and
This is fucking lowbrow.
one again, I know it's the most like, and well, so like right
Bottom of
after,
the
right
barrel.
before he eats the weenies, because they show the weenies in their own gross. The table low, like parts of the table lower, and then a train track raises, and then the train track has condiments on it, so it goes to you, and like you get the like ketchup, and you put it on, and the train keeps going around the little track. Like, what person convinced Dan Ackroyd that that's part of his scary house? Because like,
I know. I
Maybe
know.
that was in his dream he had about that. Because, like I said, everything, like the dream logic of it almost like makes the movie. It doesn't never works, but you're like, oh, I see the intent. If this is supposed to be a
Exactly,
dream,
yeah.
and like everything just kind of bleeds into another without like really making sense. This all kind of feels that
Yeah.
way, and it is successful
Totally.
there. It's just not funny
Yeah.
at all.
Well,
You
see,
know?
and
Or yeah,
again,
it's just very uninteresting. Yeah.
before I get
Like,
to
but
the,
imply that the hot dogs are made out of old humans or something. I
I
don't
think
know.
the implications of the hot dogs is the drug dealers.
Do they say that? I
Oh
might
yeah.
just
They
miss
don't
that.
say it, but I think like you're supposed to make that connection that they're eating this gross meat,
Which is
and
Texas
the bone
Chainsaw
strip.
2.
Yeah.
Is that's the entire
But-
premise.
But
Yeah.
also, okay, and then the cook of the hot dog is the other John Candy, who plays his twin sister, who's a mute, and who takes an instant
Yeah.
liking to Chevy Chase. And she's like, it's also this thing, because I watched an interview with Dan Ackroyd where he was talking about this role, and he's like, we don't go for cheap laughs with the drag character. She's his sister. We play him like that, and it's a very funny
They said
role.
this.
It's a very funny role that's not relying on the fact that it's John Candy and drag. And I will say that they do not go
Okay.
for the cheap jokes on it, because they don't go for any jokes. She's just a
Yeah.
character who's there. Like they don't
Mm.
like, the only thing that you're ever supposed to laugh at is that it's John Candy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
even
John
then-
Kenny making eyes at Chevy Chase.
Yeah,
That's
like-
the whole thing.
Because like
Yeah.
if you watch even, and I can't believe I'm using this as an example, even Jack and Jill with the two Adam Sandlers. Adam Sandler, when he's playing a girl who's also not doing any jokes, is also like, she at least has a high pitched voice and she talks funny. Like you're like, oh Benji, I want to do this. John Candy's not even like, they can't even be bothered
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
him him do anything that's funny other
Yeah.
than look like he's.
What do we do? We just make her a mute. Just make her a mute, please,
Yeah.
for the love of God. It's just only getting worse. Just
Yeah,
all lines cut.
and see, and then this kind of leads to the thing that I think is the worst, because then the judge is like, "Oh, I'm gonna eat this hot dog," and he like eats the hot dog. But like again, I don't like. Am I supposed to be laughing at the fact that the judge is like super old and gross, or am I supposed to be scared by this? Like in the it's the same thing where like in Texas Chainsaw, you don't ever see anyone put ketchup on anything. Like if you saw Leatherface like put ketchup on the meat that he was eating, you'd kind of like lose some respect for Leatherface.
Totally.
He
Yeah.
has to do that, you know? And so
Yeah.
it's kind of like, what do you want? What are you going for?
I know, and
I know.
it's just like I don't get how anyone would like be like, this is a laugh riot. I
Yeah.
just
I
don't.
know.
And
How you could appreciate this, you know?
and then
It's like
halfway,
not a direct enough parody to like even be referencing anything.
Yeah.
Really.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's not its own thing enough, because like again, I don't know if they necessarily reference that the weenies are humans, but I feel like I may have made that connection just because it looks so similar to like the house in Texas Chainsaw that I assumed that's what was going on. But like,
No, for sure. I think on the internet, I was seeing a lot of people were
Yeah.
kind of making that connection too.
Yeah.
So I think it's something was supposed to be there.
and then like, so in the middle of it, which is why I asked about whether they knew that the other couple had gotten killed. The two Brazilians are like, that's enough, we're out of here, and so they jump out of the window and they just leave. But if you look at the series of
Yeah.
events, I don't think these people are there yet. Where like, I mean, yeah, your jail cell's a little weird, but you're still just in jail until you
Right,
go to
'cause
court
it's-
tomorrow. You know,
Basically, as the Brazilians are escaping, Chevy Chase and Demi Moore are trying to like go through the house as well, and they find the proof that the judge is like murdering people.
yeah.
And it's almost like, oh, they should have just all found this, and that's when the Brazilians
Before, yeah,
Totally.
yeah, it's like every scene of this movie is slightly out of order in
Yeah.
a weird way, and it's like again, even
Yeah.
them being in order wouldn't totally work, but you almost like could like make it at least structurally like sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
yeah.
well,
It would
and
make
then-
motivations make a lot more sense for sure.
My
Yeah.
favorite part of this movie is the next part, because when Demi Moore and Chevy Chase are looking through the house and they're like kind of looking, they find a room filled with IDs, and they're like, oh, there's also a missing person report next to this ID. How convenient. And then they get to
Yeah.
one where they're like, oh my god, here's Jimmy Hoffa's and here's his ID.
Oh yeah. I
And I
forgot
was
all
like-
about that.
I was like, what a weirdly timed reference for this movie, like out of
I know.
nowhere.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so out of place. It's like, okay,
It-
I guess Jimmy Hoffa
Cool.
was there.
So it's like, but
Um,
so he talks about like hating bankers or something. Is this that scene?
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's like but also drug dealers.
Yeah.
And like anyone else, I don't know. Was
He-
Hoffa a banker? He was just a mob guy.
Yeah, he hates bankers the most, which like again doesn't really play into the Hoffa thing. But he says because they like took the United Coke Company, like they gave everyone shares and then they like left the place bare. There's also like a weird thing that gets closer to the end where like that like his speech about the Coke Company kind of coming in and taking over the small town and then leaving it dead. Like that's like no guys, you have not earned
Right.
that
Again,
kind of
and,
social
like,
commentary.
in a real horror
In the
movie,
Dick
that
Nose
would be
movie,
like
yeah.
the big thematic, like
Yeah.
Yeah, we could
thing,
say that at the
but
very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
that may not as well matter.
Yeah.
This, like, again,
Yeah.
nothing matters, but that especially doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Right.
And then while they're doing all this, the Brazilian is running and they have to like cross a like river of shit, which like I think this is like a budget problem, but like they have to cross this river that they say smells like shit. And you can almost see the edges of the hole that they dug for this because it is such a small
Ravine,
Yeah.
a small chasm.
This is actually the one joke that I thought was funny, because when they're swimming through it, they're like, "Oh, this is as bad as the San Paulo or whatever, like
Yeah.
the river in Brazil." And then somehow, independently, Chevy Chase also makes that comparison later. I'm like, that's like the one funny callback in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Is that? But no, they almost
I
get it,
missed
and then
that
John
callback.
Candy is waiting for them with his Uzi.
And his cigar. Everyone smokes a cigar in this movie.
And,
Another thing,
Yeah,
Chevy
what did he
Chase,
call
like-
it? A dog rocket.
yeah,
I love that. That was
He-
great.
he pulls out a
That's what I call
cigar.
cigars from now on.
Chevy Chase has a cigar like in the judge, and the judge is like, "Put that cigar out." And it's supposed to like show that the
Oh, he calls
judge
it a
is
dog
like
rocket.
unruly, but it's like, yeah, you shouldn't light a dog rocket. You shouldn't light one of those dog rockets in the
Yeah.
courthouse,
Yeah.
regardless. You know.
No.
Get your
Yeah,
dog
not ever.
rockets outside, please.
But yeah, but I just remember that. But going back to that scene, so then the Brazilians are like, "Oh, we're rich," and then then John Kennedy's like, "Oh, let me help you escape. Go that way." But it's like, but you knew they were rich. They were literally trying to bribe you, like yesterday.
Right. I thought he
Or-
was trying to like trick them and like was going to take them back and like
I know,
execute them
it's-
in front of
it's-
everybody or something.
But we should be clear, they're not in the movie again
Yeah,
at all.
until the
Well,
end, yeah.
until
Well-
the very, very end. These three
Well,
characters are
spoiler.
gone.
Well,
Yeah.
John Candy has one more scene, which makes less sense, but we'll get to that. Oh, well, he has two more scenes, the end and then a scene in between. But so then they find their way to like their Chevy Chase is outside of the judge's chambers, and the judge takes off his nose and he's revealed that he has like a skeleton face, and he's all
Yeah.
grotesque, which is again the makeup in this movie is amazing. But then
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to talk about the dick nose, because then it's like, so you made yourself a dick nose on purpose,
Right.
Like what?
So you liked the way it looked?
Because nobody else in the movie has a dick nose, so you could be like, oh
Yeah.
well, if everyone else had it, it's just that that's what he looked like originally. But no, they have normal looking noses.
If
Right.
anything, having like an obvious fake nose would be more creepy than the dick nose. The dick
Yeah.
nose, you're just like, oh, I guess that's the joke.
Yeah.
It's-
And when I like,
Did we miss the twins? The other twins?
no, we're not there
Have
yet.
they- have- oh.
Oh,
okay,
man.
okay.
But like,
Okay.
see, I have a big nose, you know, and it has a little hook at the end. When I say this guy has a dick nose, I mean you can very visibly see where the head is.
Yes.
Honestly, I didn't even notice.
Oh, I noticed, especially when he's eating the hot dog. Like, I think that's the whole point of that one sequence. is so-
Totally.
You're
yeah.
probably looking away half the movie as I was, William, because you're just like,
Does
oh,
look-
I mean,
what is
I'm going to be
this?
honest. I was bored as
Yeah.
fuck.
It is very.
Are we far enough that we can swear
It's-
now?
This is almost more interesting to discuss than it is
Yeah.
to watch.
Honestly,
Well,
yeah.
it's-
I just realized that we're at 41 minutes, and I was like, I thought we were at 15.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, so then
There's so much, you
I
know.
and we haven't. Okay, so then they fight and then they capture him, and Demi Moore falls down like a series of slides. That
She,
the building has?
she's in the
Yeah.
junkyard and she comes across
She comes across Bobo and Little Dibble.
Bobo and Lil Debble,
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
That's what I call Josh and William when we're hanging out.
two
Bobo.
two malformed Dan
Andrew the
Ackroyds.
Judge.
Oh,
They
no.
They are wearing diapers.
Yes.
They talk like
Yeah.
babies,
And they're each like
They're
8
very
feet
hills
tall.
have eyes. type
Yeah.
people.
And again, this is all played for laughs that no one is having.
I know.
But-
And that's the
Yeah.
thing again, like these guys, if they had been lit correctly, would have looked terrible. I mean, they look terrifying,
Yeah.
but they're trying to like make them into like, oh, but they're just naive. It's like, okay, but again, you need to get us there. You cannot start with that. You need to start with the
Right.
fact that they look like disgusting monsters. You know?
You can be naive and scary. That can even be scarier.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
they just go off of instinct and like kind of like baby knowledge.
Yeah, but also like I feel like if you're at the point of your movie where you're going to put two adults in adult-sized diapers, maybe like really think about the choices that you've made up until that point, because
Right.
it's just like, and I think that's the thing. If it was scarier or if it was funnier, but since it's neither of those things, it's just kind of
it's-
repulsive to look at. You know, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
this
It's
is the
just
point
dumb.
where you're like, I can't believe a studio
Yeah.
signed off
Right,
on this.
right.
This
Yeah. They had some clout. All those actors were just
Yeah.
like, they're like, okay, we'll give you this money. We
like,
trust that they're going to do something because they always make hits. And
Yeah.
like,
you had to know that you weren't getting another Ghostbusters when Bobo and Little
Yeah.
Devil come out. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
Right.
we've made a mistake.
ooh,
And
yeah.
then while this is happening, I know what you're thinking. Is it time for the digital underground to come in? It is. Because they also ran a stop sign or something, and so they're speeding, and so the judge is like, oh, you guys are musicians? This is embarrassing. Tupac, we love you. Doesn't matter. You're in above the rim.
This is
So then he's like, oh, you musicians, prove it. So then they start singing, and then he pulls out a piano and he
Yeah.
starts playing the piano like Little Richard.
And it was great. He did a great job.
it's
This is the best
literally
scene in the movie.
Yeah.
literally the joke from Cabin Fever at the end, where you think the old people are racist, but it turns out they're actually
They're cool, yeah.
friends with cool young black people. That's this
Yeah.
scene,
So
which
If-
it's just nothing.
if you thought that I was too harsh on Eli Roth earlier, remember that he was inspired by this scene. It was very clear.
Right. Yes. By anything from this film.
And so then the judge is like, you guys did great singing. You're free to go. And then Chevy Chase is like, please help me. And they're like, no, actually, we need your help for one more thing. And that's when we find out that Chevy Chase has now been betrothed to John Candy.
Yeah, which is funny because at first the judge, and this is why the judge is like, I hate Banker's backstory, works even less because he's like, but I'll let you go if you marry a mute female John Candy. And it's
Yeah.
like, wouldn't you
Yeah.
hate him and not
Yeah.
want that? Because
Right. It was being played not for drag jokes.
And yes, and also at no point, which is who's being played not for drag jokes, and the next time we see her, she's in the most ridiculous wedding dress of all time.
Yeah.
But so she's like, so then they're like, they have not asked about the Brazilian couple like, at all, and then we cut to
Yeah,
John
they are
Candy,
just
the cuts
forgotten.
last scene where he's packing up, which again like eliminates what we think is gonna happen. And I think honestly, guys, I think this was the most. There had to have been more between the Brazilians and John Candy's character that they just cut out. Because it
Yeah.
makes no sense why everyone disappears halfway through this movie.
well,
Right.
and,
Right.
and like why this would be the turning point, I don't know. It's just very
Yeah.
I mean,
because-
I'm sure that a lot of scenes had F words, and like any scene that had an F word had to get
Yeah.
cut.
which would make sense. And it's also that thing where it's like, yeah, because, I mean, according to your own movie, you guys killed Jimmy Hoffa. And according to a movie I saw called The Irishman, he had a lot of money at the end there. So why
Yeah.
didn't you take his money? Like, why now are you
They
taking
couldn't find his
money?
debit card.
Yeah. He couldn't write a check or what?
Yeah. Like what?
You know what it was is that they showed up 20 minutes late and he was like, that's not how you do a meeting. You show up 20 minutes late. That's an Irishman joke, guys. Go watch it.
again that
Very good,
one
yeah.
scene funnier than anything
I
in this
know, it
movie.
really was.
You know.
Yeah.
So
Oof.
then they're about to get married and a lot of stuff happens.
They do get married. They do get
That's
married,
the plot of this film.
and then the Digital Underground's leaving, and Chevy Chase's like, "Wait, tell people I'm being held here." And the judge is like mad.
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm going to kill you anyway." And then stuff happens. I don't know.
Well, and then they're like,
Yeah.
they try to put him in the bone stripper, but it
the bone
breaks.
stripper.
So then they have like another
Yeah,
thing.
conveniently. Well, he kind of breaks it, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
he does
He's
kind
kind
of
of like moving it a little bit. That
Yeah.
was sweaty, but it was all right.
It was enough.
Yeah.
And so then they have like this giant guillotine that cuts you up into a bunch of pieces. But they show us how it works by putting a bunch of watermelons, which I can guarantee was what happened when it was just the actual test that the production design and stunt team did. Because why would there
more
be
footage?
like watermelons?
If you're thinking of what state has more watermelons, California or New York City? They're probably getting them from California where they were shooting this movie. So
No, New York City, more like Watermelon City. What are you talking about?
So then they're like, okay, we're going to decapitate them, but then they distract them, and Chevy Chase saves Demi Moore at the last second, and then they go. And you think the movie's over, but it's not. It's still gonna keep going.
Yeah.
So then they like go and they explain everything, and it cuts to Demi Moore like doing a diagram. And then all the cops are like, "Let's go get him!" And so like every cop in the world goes to the house.
It's like SWAT, ATF, all that stuff is descending on the property.
And then they like go to because they're like, "Do you guys want to go open the door?" Which again, like cops wouldn't do that, but then they're like, "Yeah, let's do it." They open the door, and the judge is like, "I don't know you," and then he's like, "You guys are in for a big surprise." And then like they turn around, and all of the cops are like, "Hey, judge, we're your friends," which again. You have not earned this anti-cop rhetoric that you're trying to throw.
I was like, to be fair, that is how cops would react to a judge murdering people.
But also,
I
know.
Right.
But also,
it's like a tiny town. How does this tiny town with no money influence all these cops? Like,
I know.
They have no money.
How did they go?
Where's this influence?
Not only that, but like, why did he pretend at first that he didn't know that? Like to extend the bit, but like the bit had already extended all the way from New York to Hoboken or wherever they live. So like, what was the point of that? And then almost immediately the like there was like fires underneath it. There's so much in this movie. And it's starting there's underground coal fires that we didn't even talk about, but they start exploding from the ground, and then the house burns down, and Chevy Chase and Demi Moore are able to escape, and they fall in love. And so again, like, why even do the whole cop thing? Like, what?
Yeah, why not just have the city burn? Yeah,
because
it's like it's not a funny enough joke for that.
That's what I was gonna say. Like,
you could say that about the whole movie, but
the setup is a few minutes long for the ending joke to be like, "Oh, the judge was their friend."
Yeah, and then they're basically gonna kill Chevy Chase and Demi Moore for like knowing too much, you know?
Yeah.
And then just then, by coincidence, all the fires like start coming out of the ground, like the coal fires.
Well, and then here's the only joke that I laughed at, other than the random nonsense of Jimmy Hoffa. So at the very end, and then we find out that the Brazilians escaped with John Candy, and now John Candy is their bodyguard, but also the lover of the sister. And and they explain this very naturally by being like, "Aren't you glad you came with us to be our bodyguard and also my sister's lover?" Literally what the line of dialogue says. They don't have time. They're wrapping up.
Yeah.
But then
we have until the end of this walkway to get all this out. So let's go.
You know what's funny?
We only have one pool to get to.
That's also kind of how the money pit ends. It just randomly like cuts to. Like a guy in Brazil.
I will say that 80s movies love to end with the main protagonist like on a tropical paradise for some reason. Like that was always that was the ending of a lot of comedies. And then it cuts to Chevy Chase in his room, and they're watching like a story about the little town that explodes, which apparently now everyone knows about. Okay.
National story.
And then they run into the judge who's like picking some stuff up, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to go live with my son-in-law. He's in New York." And Chevy Chase is like, he runs, and then he runs through the wall.
It's the outline.
And it's the outline of a dude like this. And then you hear him go, you hear him go, "Not me." Or something like that.
Yeah.
So ridiculous.
It's such a bad way to end a horror film. And it's not a great way to end
a comedy. It's not a
horror
film. It's not even a horror. Like, it should be.
And yeah, I think like I would say I would recommend this movie. You're not probably gonna like it, of course. And you're probably gonna get bored halfway through. But it's such a weird like who
Yeah.
greenlit this? Why did Chevy Chase think this was a good idea? Why did anyone sign up on this? You know?
I mean, they
It
just
is.
shouldn't have let Dan Ackroyd direct. I mean, he was around so many movies, and like he was, a real hit guy. But like this, this was just fucking ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
Like the characters weren't built up at all, and like they know how to write and like make good stuff. But I just think that Ackroyd's just not a director. He doesn't know how to do tension, or he doesn't know how to like build things up, or like where to put things in order. Like, just a bad choice for that.
I think
It
oh
is.
go
It
ahead,
is
Zach.
weird. No. I just it's like to me. There's like again. It's like it has the irreverent tone of like an SNL sketch, and it's
Totally.
just like I just don't understand why you would do that for
Well,
this.
and
Like why wouldn't he? I don't know. It's just very weird
Yeah,
to me.
you think
it's too
about
ambitious.
like you hear stories about the original version of Ghostbusters, and like in the original version the Ghostbusters have already been set up. They're like all over the country. At one point they go into hell to fight Gozer like has so much more backstory, and like Jason Reitman like or no Ivan Reitman
Ivan,
just
yeah,
took it and like knocked all of it off and was like, no, we're not doing any of this. Like,
strip
let's
it
do it
down, keep it
about the
simple.
beginning of this organization so that
Yeah,
people know what the hell you're talking about. And like they go into different dimensions. Like even like when they were talking about the sequels, you could see when Dan Aykroyd would try to get in when he'd be like, "Oh, other dimensional ghosts," and it's like, "No, Dan." Um,
Yeah,
and
keep
yeah.
it simple,
this,
Keep your
buddy.
nerd shit out of here.
Get your Crystal Skull stuff out of here.
this
Yeah,
feels like nobody told Dan Aykroyd, like, "Hey, you're throwing way too much at us," and nobody's like,
I
nothing's
100% agree.
working. Yeah,
Yeah,
because like
he's more interested in the story than the characters. 100%.
yeah, and he's more interested in.
Yeah,
I would even say he's more interested in the world because
yeah, for sure.
there's so much thought put into the set design and in the characters' looks, and then it's just not fed back to us. Like, why does John
Hmm.
Candy have red hair? When he's- like, what's happening? Like, what is going? No
Right.
one else in this movie has. Does his does his
Yeah,
twin have red hair?
that's like
I don't
it's like
remember.
She does.
the,
She has
the,
Watch
blonde
it.
hair.
that's the weird thing though. It's like you could tell he was like obsessed with like being like, no, I remember like this is like the nightmare or whatever I had.
Totally.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna make the judge this, but then it makes like all this stuff and like, oh, how do we get these New York people here? Like you could just tell he doesn't care, and he's just like, just get through it, just
Right.
get through it. It's like
Yeah.
this doesn't matter. These characters don't matter. It's all just like
Yeah.
in service to like now let's see the judge dance and
Right. It's just
fart.
hubris.
I don't know. Yeah,
I-
yeah,
I-
yeah.
He thinks we're gonna be on board because we like Dan Aykroyd and Chevy
Right.
Chase, but it's like obviously not, dude.
Yeah, and it is funny too. Like one of the other trivia's was that he originally gave this to Ivan Reitman, and Ivan Reitman was like, "No, this is terrible." And then he
Nice.
said that he gave it to John Hughes, and John Hughes really, really loved it, but he only directs his own features. And I will say, I have also used that excuse as a director, and
He's like he really really loved it, but he's actually busy that weekend,
Busy
so
all
Yeah.
he'll get back to you.
I don't know. And
Sorry.
I do wish that we could have seen the R-rated version. I mean, that is the good thing about Megalopolis is that you do see Coppola's like unaltered version of that movie. But I
Yeah.
think with this one, you almost do wish you had seen the R-rated or the full complete version of it, just to see like, was this hacked up and I don't see how this movie could be saved by adding a couple of things and being more clear. Because either way, it's still not funny and it's still not scary. So like,
See,
Right.
but
And there's
I
still
almost
no
think,
character
like,
motivation.
yeah,
if the tone was that like not like Texas Chainsaw bleak, but like Texas Chainsaw 2, you know what I mean? Where it's like
yeah,
it's still a
Yeah.
horror, but it's like absurd horror. Like I almost feel like that tone could work where you're like, oh, it's a little silly, but
yeah.
not guy leaving a cartoon imprint in the wall. You know, like there's still like
Right.
something here for you to be scared of, you know?
Yeah, like
totally.
and it's such, and this is like you look at like Bill and Ted Go to Hell or whatever Bill and Ted when they went to hell was, Bogus Journey.
Oh, bogus. Yeah, bogus.
And there's that part where they go to hell and they have like the rabbit and they have like the granny and they have the colonel. And those scenes are so scary, like for no reason, because that movie's
Yeah.
not even trying to be scary. But it's so like with the
Right.
pink elephants from Dumbo. Like there's so much like history of like mixing kind of comedy and kids stuff with horror, but still making it
Yeah.
scary. You just don't make it like overtly scary, so they're not like traumatized. But there was a
Yeah.
way for this movie to kind of be this story and be funnier or be scarier, but it kind of hits this middle of the road where it's like now we're not either, and now you're kind of gross to look at, and I don't really want to enjoy this. But also, I have TBS, and there's nothing else on.
Yeah. My dad has the remote, so
Yeah. What am I gonna do? Change the
Fuck.
channel?
Yeah.
I gotta go.
Yeah, I had never seen this.
We
I
have
feel
to
like
go
I had
click it.
Me either.
I had
I'd never
seen
even heard about
commercials
this.
for it, but it's just one of those where I was like, no,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
happening.
Also, the trailer for this is so funny because it literally just covers like almost the entire trailer is before they get to the house, and then they just show the judge, and then it cuts. Like they do not show anything, and
Yeah, that's
you could tell
wise.
that the studio was like, "Nah,
Fucking
dude,
Dan.
I don't know, man. Is there a
What's
Stay
wrong
Puft
with
gonna
you?"
show up?"
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But
If
yeah.
only.
I think.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it really is like, because you're watching, you're like, this isn't very good. You're like, you're just kind of watching. You're like, where's this going? And then, like I said, the second the judge shows up, you're just like, oh, like I
Yeah.
let out a physical groan. I was like, oh,
And
okay.
I-
That's what
Right,
this
right.
is.
It's also one of those movies where you never really know where it's going, because if you're gonna tell me two adult-sized babies are gonna show up, I would not have believed you. But it also never feels like you're that shocked because everything is so
Mhm.
kind of just happens
Ta-da.
that you're not
Yeah.
like, oh shit, that's creepy.
What's funny too is we mentioned the babies because they are the most shocking part of this, because I don't think they factor into anything.
No.
They're like,
We don't know where they came from or
they're
anything.
there. They don't affect the plot.
And
Yeah.
even the other characters other than Demi Moore barely acknowledge the babies. So it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what exactly were they supposed to be? Because that like it kind of seems like they're enforcers, but they're too dumb, and so it's like,
Yeah. And they're not revolting against their uncle or dad or whatever.
yeah, and like why didn't they go to dinner? You know, like what's there's no explanation for their story. It's just like, again, it feels like a nightmare, and I bet you watching this
Yeah.
movie felt like a nightmare too.
It did.
But
Yeah.
I saw that like from the reviews, like people were saying like it's just an ugly, atrocious, gross out like fright fest, and it's like just so horrible. And I was like, maybe they just weren't ready for like ultra gore or torture porn or something. 'Cause I was like
Right.
ready for
It's
this to
not
be like
Terrifier.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I was
But-
watching, I was just like, this just sucks.
It's funny because if I were Dan
Hardcore at all.
Ackroyd, like
Yeah.
if you're living through this in your dreams, it is probably horrifying. But
Yeah.
this is almost like someone telling you their dream, where you're like, it's always going to be kind of boring hearing about someone else's dream. That's almost what this
Yeah.
whole movie feels like.
Right,
You
right.
know? Yeah.
It's like we're not your analyst, Dan Aykroyd.
I know.
We're paying you.
I know. But I don't know. I think like I would say check it out, see how weird it is.
Yeah.
And I do think it would have done way better if it had been called Vaconia or whatever.
Valdenvania.
Yeah.
Valdenvania. Just because
yeah.
that sounds more like that movie Transylvania 600. If that movie had been called like A Lover's Quarrel, you probably would not have expected.
Yeah.
If Cabin in the Woods
Right.
had been called Trip Away, you probably were not going to expect what it was going to have.
Away we go, the sequel.
Yeah.
Where are we going to end up?
College Road Trip. You're going to be
Yeah.
expecting a different movie. But
Yeah.
that was it, guys. We wanted to cover this one. This is a famously bad movie, but I do still think it has merit. It's not just nothing.
Yeah, it is almost fascinating because you just
Yeah.
can't believe it got made. You're
Yeah.
just like,
Right.
why
And
is this?
not only did
It's
it
made
get
by talented
made-
people.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Not only did it get made, but it get made by the guy who made Ghostbusters, the creators of Caddyshack,
Right.
Yeah.
the
Like, they
Blues
were the-
Brothers.
The Apatows of their day or whatever,
Yeah.
you know? Like just such a major troupe.
This is definitely the Drill Bit Taylor of the Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah. The hall pass.
But yeah, but thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week on the Bomb Squad.